Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. We are discussing about organizational framework of the United Nations. We have already discussed 5 major organs of the United Nations. Sixth and last, most important organ of the United Nations is the Secretariat. Our today's discussion is about the Secretariat. The Secretariat is one of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations. It comprises of the Secretary General and other staff as the organization may require. It provides services to the other organs of the United Nations, the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, and the Trusteeship Council, and as well as their subsidiary bodies. The Secretary General is appointed by General Assembly on the recommendations of Security Council. Basic function of Secretariat is to coordinate and administer the programs and policies of the United Nations. The Secretary General, due to consideration, is also given to wide geographical basis of recruitment. It may be noted that the staff permanently assigned to the Economic Social Council and the Trusteeship Council and the other organs of the United Nations also forms a part of the United Nations Secretariat. The Secretariat is located at headquarters of the United Nations in New York. It also has branch offices at Geneva, Vienna, and Nairobi and other countries. So the Secretariat also includes the regional commissions of different other countries of the world. Now I explain you functions of the Secretariat. The main functions of the Secretariat are: number 1, production of reports and other documents containing information, analysis, historical background, research finding, policy suggestions, 2, facilitate deliberations and decision making by other organs and their subsidiary bodies. Next, provision of secretarial services to legislative organs and their subsidiary bodies. Next, provision of meeting services to the legislative organs in accordance with the policies adopted by the General Assembly. Next, provision of editorial, translation and documentation reproduction services for the issuance of United Nations documents in different languages. Next, conduct of studies and provision of information that answers to the priority needs of the governments of member countries in meeting challenges in various fields. Next, production of statistical publications, information bulletins and analytical work which the General Assembly has decided. Next, organization of conferences, expert group meetings and seminars on topics of concern to the international community. Provision of technical assistance to developing countries, undertaking of service missions to countries, area or locations, as authorized by the General Assembly or the Security Council. Next, to arrange the different informations on United Nations activities and decisions among the public. Provision of program planning, financial, personal, legal, management, and general services which are essential for a rational selection of work items and allocation of resources among them for effective, economic, and efficient performance of the services and functions of the Secretariat. While discharging all these above discussed functions of the Secretariat also involved in the policy formulation. The studies and reports prepared by the Secretariat serve as a useful input for the government policy. The United Nations officials engaged in international agencies greatly influence the decision-making process through direct participation. In this regard, probably the greatest influence is exercised by the staff of the different specialized agencies. The United Nations officials also greatly influence the organization policy and world politics through diplomacy. These officials play a vital role in promoting agreement among states through discussions and reconciling their differences. They help in the formulation and adoption of resolutions by the United Nations. Even after these resolutions are adopted, the international officials try to see compliance of these resolutions by the member states. These officials also act as mediators, conciliators, and conscious builders and try to resolve the controversies between states. It is well known that in different period of history, the General Assembly and the Security Council have played their very important role to resolve different disputes through the conciliation role of the Secretary General. There are many techniques of international administrations, relative permanence and continuity, and direct responsibility for the various agencies' operations. All these functions of the Secretariat provided that United Nations, all organs remained interrelated, and Secretariat is also playing its very important role to promote cooperation among member states. While discussing about a Secretariat, one point is very clear that Secretariat is Secretariat is considered as an administrative body of the United Nations. Its basic function is to coordinate the programs and policies through the organization, and it also become helpful to other organs of the United Nations. While discussing importance of the Secretariat, we cannot deny importance of the Secretary General. The Secretary General of the United Nations. Now I explain you about the Secretary General. The Secretary General is the Chief Administrative Officer of the Secretariat. He is appointed by the General Assembly on the recommendations of the Security Council. Usually, before recommending the name of a candidate for the office of the Secretary General, the Security Council hold different discussions to find out a candidate acceptable to all the permanent members. However, the name recommended by the Security Council for the office of the Secretary General can be rejected by the General Assembly. It was decided that the appointment of Secretary General for a term of 5 years with the eligibility for reappointment or re-elected. The General Assembly further expressed the view that it would be desirable that no member should offer a retiring Secretary General any governmental position in which the confidential information he has obtained might become a source of embarrassment to the other members. Thus, the Secretary General was given a term of 5 years which could be renewed or extended. Now I explain you briefly about the powers and functions of the Secretary General. The United Nations Secretary General has been given more powers than enjoyed by his counterpart under the League of the Nations. The first Secretary General of the United Nations, Dragonfly, made full use of the powers vested in him by the United Nations Charter and played a very important role for the organizations. Now I explain you next most important point: administrative services and administrative functions of the Secretary General. The Secretary General is responsible for the organization and direction of the activities of the organization. The staff of all the United Nations organs, excluding the International Court of Justice, falls under his purview. As such, it is his responsibility to ensure that the various organs of the United Nations and their committees and conference work properly. For this purpose, he draws provisional agenda, notifies about the meetings to various members, provides staff and facilities for the holding of meetings, he examines also credential of representatives and submits reports to the concerned organs. He also assists in the drafting of documents. It is also very important responsibility of the Secretary General to drafting of documents, resolutions and reports, and provides legal and technical advice. His next most important duty is that he also taken necessary action on the resolutions passed by the General Assembly and communications these resolutions to the member governments and also take different steps to implement these resolutions or recommendations. The responsibility for the registration of treaties and agreement also another most important function of the United Nations Secretary General. This is very important point of this discussion, that all treaties and agreements registered under the article number 102 of the United Nations Charter, because this article of United Nations Charter provides that every treaty and every international agreement entered into by any member of the United Nations shall, as soon as possible, be registered with the Secretariat and published by the Secretariat. Further functions of the Secretariats are that all multilateral treaties are also to be deposited with the Secretary General. It is the responsibility of Secretary General to publish and notify all these treaties to the members of the United Nations. So, the Secretary General tries to maintain necessary liaison with the specialized agencies of the United Nations. For this purpose, he holds meetings with the directors of these organizations and provides personnel for liaison purposes. He is responsible for exchange of documents and information as well as other functions. Next most important functions of the Secretary General is about his financial functions. The Secretary General has been entrusted with the important financial responsibilities. Subject to the authority of the General Assembly, he prepares the budget of the United Nations. He allocates funds, controls expenditures, collects the contributions from members, and acts as custodian of all the funds. He tries to develop common fiscal control and financial practices in consultation with specialized agencies and undertakings. So, financial functions also most important functions, most important responsibility of the Secretary General of the United Nations. Secretary General of the United Nations also play his role as a representational functions. As I earlier explained you that as the chief administrative, as the head of Secretariat, and as the chief representative of the United Nations, the Secretary General represents the United Nations in negotiations with other agencies and government. He also occupies a central position in the functioning of the various organs of the United Nations. Secretary General also played some political functions. He also has been assigned important political function. If we examine his assigned political functions, then we find out that he exercises profound influence on the formulation of the policy. It may be observed that this power of the Secretary General emanates from Article number 99 of the United Nations Charter, which stipulates that the Secretary General may bring to the attention of the Security Council any matter which in his opinion may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. This is very important point regarding the powers and functions and role of the Secretary General of the United Nations. This article permits the Secretary General to submit for the consideration of the Security Council any dispute, situation, or other matter, disputed situation which is not raised by a member of the Council. This enables the Secretary General to convene a meeting of the Security Council even when no other member of the Council demands such a meeting. The Secretary General can also present informations or state opinion on matters already under the consideration of the Security Council. From political functions and during this discussion role of Secretary General, we can very easily find out that Secretary General played very important role for the maintenance of international peace and security and to resolve different disputes peacefully. Next most important point of this discussion is that Secretary General also compiled annual reports on the work of the organization, and Secretary General is able to exercise considerable amount of his political influence. These reports are an important source of information on the accomplishments and problems of the United Nations and usually from the basis for the opening debates of the General Assembly. In addition, the Secretary General can also propose some agenda items for agenda of General Assembly, the Security Council and the Trusteeship Council. All this power enables him to exercise initiative and influence by making proposals, effecting the establishment of priorities and advocating the viewpoints which he considers appropriate. The office of the Secretary General has also become very popular since the establishment of the United Nations. Different Secretary Generals played their different role for resolving disputes, for ceasefire, for peacekeeping activities, for promoting greater cooperation among the member states. So, overall, role of Secretary General remained very important in the functioning of the United Nations. Secretary General can play at any given time in a particular situation depends on his personality as well as the political support which he is able to get from various groups in the United Nations. While concluding this discussion, it can be explained or we can say that there are definite advantages in having the Secretary General perform major political functions in peace and security fields. He is an official continuously on job, presumably possessing qualification of a political and personal nature which equip him for difficult diplomatic and administrative tasks. He has in the Charter a legal basis for taking initiative and assuming responsibilities. He has at his disposal a large and well qualified staff representing a variety of experiences and national points of view. He is therefore in the position, acting directly or through is chosen representative, to mobilize a variety of skills and experiences and with the traditions of an impartial and highly qualified international service to support him, to command the confidence and trust of government. One point uh, which is related to the topic of the Secretary General. At the end of this topic, I explained you that there are 9 Secretary Generals in the functioning of the United Nations who played and playing their important role. First Secretary General was Trygve from Norway. Second was Mr. Dag Hammarskjöld from Sweden. Third Secretary General of the United Nations was Othant from Burma, now Myanmar. Fourth, Kurt Waldheim from Austria. Fifth, Javier Perez de Cuellar from Peru. Sixth, Boutros Ghali from Egypt. Seventh, Kofi A. Annan from Ghana. Eighth, Ban Ki-moon from Republic of Korea. And ninth and current Secretary General of the United Nations is António Guterres from Portugal. So, in the history of the United Nations, list of 9 Secretary Generals, and every Secretary General played his due role for the betterment of the United Nations. So, our today's discussion is about Secretariat, the last institution, sixth institution in the structure of the United Nations, and Secretary General. I explain you about Secretariat and Secretary General. So, our today's discussion clearly explains United Nations overall functioning through different personalities, through different institutions, through different programs and policies. So, one of the most important topic of your syllabus completed today, and that is the end of our today's discussion. Allah Hafiz. Oh shit.